Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Guile here, and welcome back to another Supreme Commander epic. Goodness me, it's been a while since we were last here, wasn't it? Well, thank the coof for that. Yes, down with the blasted COVID. And I was double jabbed as well. That's what really annoys me. But guess jab doesn't stop you getting COVID. Like, we didn't all already know that. Well, maybe it would have been slightly worse. I can't see how. I know they were saying that the Omicron thing, that was supposed to be lighter than all the others. But damn! That headache and fever that just wouldn't abate for like ever tore through the entire family. But we've had it now. Had to happen sooner or later. And my God, what's been going on since we've been away? World War III is about to break out by the sounds of things. Putin, if you're watching, which of course, why wouldn't you be? Keep your fingers to yourself, young man. Quite grotesque. Anyway, let's get on with today's game. It's going to be custom 4v4 with an eclectic mix of Joes and pros. And in honor of my victory over the coronavirus, we are going to go and watch a game on Corona. That's right. Exciting stuff. I'm ready. You guys are ready, and the players are sure as hell ready. So let's go on over to the game zone and see how they're going to get on. Ching. Ka-ching. No surprises here. We'll call this Team 1 up here at the very top and this Team 2 down here at the bottom. Going first for Team 1 as we introduce our players in baby pink. It's Sprom. There he is, or Zbrom. That's going to be fun saying over and over again throughout the duration of this cast. Anyways, going UEF, how very sensible in... we said baby pink already. Yes, we did. And he's opening a first land. His opponent immediately to his right, just over here. One of the lesser known and more straight up of the Decepticons. It's Erectatron. There he is. And he's also going UEF in Pontiff White and opening first land over here at the top right on the slightly higher plateau, keeping it with the 80s cartoon references. It's Schnarf's more capable cousin. We'll go with it that way. Here he is going UEF again. I'm sensing a theme here. And he is going Ferrari Red, opening first land. Last but not least for Team 1, also on this top plateau, it is Wounded Elk Noob. Had to mess with the pattern, didn't he? Go Cybran in Mellow Yellow, opening first land, going second air. So that's Team 1, comprising of 3 UEF and a Cybran, just to be difficult. Checking out Team 2 now. Down here at the bottom, first of all, in this season's fashionable Vivacious Violet, it's Superintendent. There he is, going Aeon, our first of the day, opening first land. Team member number 2 for Team 2 to his left up here, it's Exited, with 2 X's, or Exited, as we're probably going to be. Is that meant to be like excited spelt wrong with a double X, or is it Exited spelt wrong with a double X? I don't know. It's one of those two. Anyway, he's going Cybran, bless him, in Halib Orange, opening first land. And team member number 3 over here in a Baby Blue, another Cybran. It's Careless Class, so we'll probably be referring to him as Class today. He's going first land, second air, and last but not least, up on the plateau but already on the move, it's Will-O-Wisp. Not Willow the Wisp, as I think it should be, but it's Will-O-Wisp in Elephantine Grey, going Seraphim, our first of the day, opening first land and just going land all day, by the looks of things. So it's an Aeon to Cybran and a Seraphim there for Team 2. Game quality at a whopping 100%. That really surprises me. Again, still not sure how they sort these things out, or whether something's been changed in the algorithm to come to that, but that is pretty special. Well, actually, if you look at the averages, well, I mean, it's pretty much about as close to perfection as you get. The averages between the two teams, 1180 for Team 2 and 1179. That might just be the closest balance we've ever had. So I'm going to give it to you 100%. This is a perfectly balanced game, ladies and gentlemen, as the first few harassing units pass one another. A couple of labs from each team. Down goes a little scout there for Wounded Elk Noob. He'll be very sad about that, I'm sure. Look at that distribution of reclaim, though. It's all over the place. Looks like one of my sneezes. Absolutely coagulating, mainly, I suppose, in little clumps in the middle. But a good spray. I'm a real sprayer. I always get into bed at night, and for some reason lying down, it promotes a sneeze. Not sure what that's about. My wife's a big fan, so she goes to bed before me. Wake her up with... But anyway, I digress. T1 Bomber out for Wounded Elk Noob. Circling over the main bases now for Team 2. We do have a little mobile anti-air vehicle there, a Thistle belonging to Superintendent, but it doesn't stop the bomber from taking out 2 of his NGs, and that bomber will now move on to other vulnerable targets, of which there are a couple right here. Nice handy clump of 2 more engineers. That is 4 engineer kills, maybe. It might have been 5, actually. We do have some interceptors out now to defend. And those interceptors belonging to Exited will be successful in blapping that little bomber out of the sky. What have we got here? A Rectitron in the center. Commanding presence as always. No need for Viagra here. Blaps himself a couple of Mantis. And moves forward. Busy scooping up all of the big rocks in here. Those are some juicy... Actually, I would expect that to be nearer the 100 mark. But 75 seems to be the price of a big stone in Subcom these days. Would have expected a little bit more than that. But still not to be sniffed at. Good mass early doors. Good reclaim for your coffers and indeed your teams if you can't spend it quick enough. Will-O-Wisp moving up towards the northwest corner. What have we got over here? Zabrom lying in wait, though. Could be getting his reclaim on. And, well, actually, he would only be funneling it into his teammates, which is still a good thing. Better than that, than it go off to your opponents. Get it scooped early and let them use it. But, yeah, the 751 showing a little bit there. He can't seem to spend his mass quickly enough. And so, as a result... floating just a little bit more than he needs to. We haven't actually taken a chance to point out who the high-rated players are, so that people to watch out in this game. 4 are Will-O-Wisp. That's the chappie over here on the left-hand side of the screen in grey. He is rocking 1721. That is pretty high-level pro status right there. And his biggest threat today is Wounded Elk Noob, which is the mirror position over on the other side in mellow yellow. And he is sporting 1511 global ranking. And then we've got a couple more. I mean, I say they're practically pro levels. We average out 1500 as a kind of arbitrary pro threshold. And those guys are pretty much nearly there. 1449 and 1486. Respectively, but then it's hard to see. Superintendent and Careless Class way down in the 700s. Narf is over 1,000 and Zabrom also in the 700s. So 2 higher rated players, 1 very high rated player on Team 2. So if Team 1 can scalp Will-O-Wisp nice and early on, take him out of the picture, that will stand them in very, very good stead. Expect that to be a priority target for them. And look what we've got here. A little bit of fake outery. He's not actually building the point defense in these little templates. Throwing them down. The problem is with that is that should show up just as a little pattern with nothing in the middle. So it should be easy to spot on the radar. Perhaps he's planning to throw down some point defense structures in there in the near future. Just getting the wall sections in place. Doubt it's going to fool Will-O-Wisp at 1721, as we've just been talking about. Gun upgrade on the way for Superintendent. In fact, that's going to be his second. He's already got one. So that's going to be a bit of double Aeon sniper commage down here in the bottom right-hand corner. We got any upgrades for Wounded Elk? No, we don't. How about Narf? Gnarf or Garf? Gnarf. It's just difficult, isn't it? Why did they have to come up with these absurd names, making life difficult for casters? Zepham on board already, though, for Gnarf. And T2 upgrade on the way as well for Erectotron. That's his first upgrade. 30% done there so far. And finally, Sprom does get an emplacement up inside one of these, but it's actually an anti-air emplacement. That's the view from Will-O-Wisp, and you can see him advancing carefree on that front line as he knows full well there's little danger to be had, and he's actually completed the gun upgrade on board that commander, so he is now in a good position to outmatch his opponent here. Sprom without any upgrades on his comm, and indeed without a lot of ground backup behind him, any spam to speak of. Will-O-Wisp, or Will-O-Wisp on the other hand, has both, and that's going to prompt an evacuation for Sprom if he knows what's good for him. Seems like he's backing out away from that. And this is a very cheeky little push up here. We missed this drop up into this top left-hand corner while we've been waffling. 3 land factories up and running, 2 more on the way. We've got a couple of inbound T1 bombers there from Sprom. But will that be enough to shut down this little proxy base that's gone up in the top left-hand corner? Probably not. Will-O-Wisp on the ball, immediately starts working on some mobile anti-air to help contend with those 2 Tech 1 bombers. And meanwhile, Will-O-Wisp containing Sprom's commander and pushing him all the way back to the main base. And that could potentially put this entire top left corner under his control. They've matched it up so that the 2 highest rated players occupy the same spots, but that means that those 2 highest rated players are essentially going to be going up against the lower order Joes. Couple of renegades in from class, locking onto Sprom's commander, who's already in trouble after this latest bit of pressure from Willow. Deep in the yellow now, 4,500 hit points. We could be about to see our first ejection from the game. The gunships get shot down by Wounded Elk, who comes in with a horde of interceptors to protect that commander. And he might be just a Joe. He might be a 700 rated player, but he's not resting on his laurels. Engineers come out. They throw down the point defense, and Willow is not going to push a bad situation. He's going to back up away from that position, take a couple of rounds or volleys of T1 bomber fire from both Erectotron and Sprom. Could do with a little bit of aerial assistance, but it doesn't look like there's any on the way in any time soon. Engineers up here very much trying to lock down this position from Zuis that have already taken out point defense here on the little ramp leading up to this mini plateau that shields that top left corner. If he's going to be successful in holding on to this top left corner, he really is going to want to pacify this ridge ASAP and put the whole area under his domain. Risky play bringing your commander this far forward, and I think it's fair to say if there wasn't such a gulf in ability between him and Sprom, no offense intended, I'm sure Sprom would agree, just looking at the ratings. But were there not that gulf, I doubt Willow would be being quite so aggressive here. 6,900 hit points on board that commander. Of course, it's the Seraphim Com, so he has that nano repair upgrade open to him should he decide to go for it. Some nice little Tech 2 Cerberus turrets in this little channel here between these 2 plateaus, dissuading Gnarf from advancing forward. Gnarf doesn't look like he's got any plans in that direction for the time being. Instead, he's fortifying the Central Valley location, and we've also got Erectotron down here who's done some fortifying of his own. He's under some shield coverage, no less, with 3 T2 PDs, some tactical missile defense. So it's kind of an interesting development. Both the corners in Team 2's control, or under Team 2's control, and the center very much under Team 1's control so far. Let's take a look at mass totals. In terms of total mass accrued, well, there's no contest really. Massive advantage for Team 1. That's probably because they benefited from the lion's share of the reclaim that was situated in the middle of the map. And as such, that has contributed to a very large differential here, some 18k difference between these 2 teams on total mass accrued. Generated mass, there's also an advantage with Team 1. They're up some 17 mass per tick, so that gulf in total mass accrued only increasing as the game goes on. For the time being, it might all change, of course. We'll have to wait and see. T1 bomber harass continuing from Erectotron, who takes the opportunity to bombard this plateau, which is actually fallen into Exeted's hands. He's grabbed both this plateau and this one down here, flanking that fortified midpoint belonging to Team 1, but his position over here didn't last long. T1 bombers from Erectotron dust that little fortification aside with no real difficulty. Zooming back into the top left, we are now up to T2 Tech, I believe. Yes, indeed, that is a T2 land factory. There's not the headquarters, though. If I'm not wrong, that's probably situated back at base. Indeed it is. For those of you who only play Forged Alliance on Steam and are still confused about the headquarters and how that works, the headquarters factory is the key factory to upgrade. It's more expensive than upgrading other factories to T2. But once you have that, that is the key to unlocking Tech 2 Tech in all the other T2 factories. So if you take out the headquarters, it means that you can no longer build Tech 2 units, or Tech 2 offensive units, I should say, out of your T2 factory. So it presents a nice juicy target for your opponents, and it also allows you to make use of redundant factories. In the old Forged Alliance builds, you would see people just control K-ing their old T1 factories and what have you, because it wasn't really worth the expense of mass upgrades, and then they would just hoover up all of the mass and pump that into more engineers supporting the smaller number of upgraded factories to pump units out quicker. So this was brought in essentially to help mitigate that gameplay, make factories, the earlier factories you built, retain some usefulness. And I think it's fair to say it's been a very big success here in the FAF mod. Certainly seems to have worked wonders since it was introduced back in the day. I believe it was Zoc who was in charge of balance back in the day, and we all miss him, waiting for the day that he returns. One day he will, I'm sure of it. I keep telling myself late at night when the voices come, Zoc will return. This little Gunther battery here for Exited, as he looks like he's going to get locked into some base wars here with Erectotron. Erectotron's actually pulled his commander off the front line and is marching on his way back to base. We do still have Gnarf, but where's he headed? Well, just a few steps behind him. He's not evacing as yet. They certainly don't want to get themselves into a position Team 1 where they lose the mid and both corners. That would be yielding an awful lot of map control, a lot of territory, and a lot of potential mass production. We didn't actually spend an awful lot of time talking about the distribution of mass points on the map, so I hope you took that in early doors. Apologies, there's so much to get through, and Tempest Fugid and all that. These guys like to get on with it. Well, Tempest Fugid, I am of course in control of the speed, so I could have done something about it, but I didn't, because this is an imperfect world, and that's part of this channel's charm. The imperfections. A little bit of probing pressure now from Erectotron, who loves a good probe. Just testing the ramp up here. It's going to find a couple of Ilshivas lying in wait for him. And when I say couple, of course, I mean 4. T1 units taking the brunt of that inbound fire. That's going to persuade Erectotron to back up away from that encounter. Doesn't like the look of that. What have we got here? That's the inbound Gunther fire by the looks of things. Takes out a tactical missile launcher located right in the center there for Gnarf. How very annoying that must have been, just as he was about to bring in a parashield as well. It's currently defending his commander. Really could do with getting some base shielding up and running, a little bit like Wounded Elk over here, who's got his comm on the front line, along with that unupgraded Cybran shield. We've lost the shield over here, thanks, I guess, to that Gunther pressure down here. Exited also fortifying with more PDs up front. I'm wondering what's going on. Let's just take a look at generated eco. Team 1 continues to put more daylight between themselves and Team 2 on generated eco. There's now 395 versus 330, something like that. So that's why we're not seeing an awful lot of investments into fortifications, into new weaponry. Team 1 are going hella macro right now. And it is showing in their mass count. As long as they can hold on for the time being, they should come out with a modest advantage in the mid-game, which we are steaming towards now. 18 minutes and 47 seconds into this game so far. Things kicked off early doors, as they so often do in a custom 4v4, but it's all been very quiet now for the last 5 minutes or so. Lots of base building from Team 2, lots of macro farming and resource management from Team 1. Ilshiva's pushing out off their ridge to engage this poor little group of Sparkies over here. Bless them. No letters home to Doris for them. She'll just have to wonder what happened to her baby's father. Mangled pile of wreckage on the front line that he is now. Pillars just about doing enough to hold the ground, but there's still a lot of Ilshivas in the mix here. They're so wonderfully mobile. A little bit of micro makes them very, very difficult to hit indeed. The Wisp looking very dangerous up here at the top now with some shield coverage, point defense. Definitely looks like he's here to stay. He has long since pacified that ridge. We never mentioned it at the time, but we've got our first potential attack underway on this top corner, combined from Narf or Gnarf. Should it be Narf or Naf? A silent GH. I think Gnarf. Gnaf. We'll stick with that. But anyway, both he and Zbrom looking to make life difficult for Willow up here in the top corner, where he really has isolated himself. He better be sure that he can hold this, or at least have some transport on standby. ASF count increasing now as we move into the mid-game. Both teams with air superiority fighters, Tech 3 firepower on the field. Who need mass? Does that mean you're floating? Yes, indeed you are. He cannot spend it quickly enough. He does have Tech 3 Land Factory, and he's got some Percivals queued up, but that is definitely where he needs to go next. Expand power production. We'll also be thinking, once that's up and running, get a Quantum Gateway online. Start pumping out those support commanders. But look at this base creep from Exited. Cerberus turrets going up underneath this latest shield. And where will the next one be? This is going to be a yielding of the center, I'm pretty sure of it, unless we get some assistance from Wounded Elk over here in the east. He's currently taking miasma fire, so that means there must be some artillery under here. There it is. Superintendent launching that ordnance up towards Wounded Elk. That unmistakable green mist. Sensibly upgrading that Cybran shield gen. It's not going to last long against firepower of that magnitude. And I like this. Going after what they can with a few flapjacks over here, keeping them out of harm's way and just picking off vulnerable units up on the ridge. That little group of mongoose we saw threatening that corner base a moment ago actually moved south in the end, but it seems to be pushing northwards once more. Only to this position here, though, taking some fire from the ridge as well. A nice fire position going up over here. Is it going to last, though, as the mobile missile launchers target the engineers working on that installation? And just one tactical missile defense over here. It's going to struggle to keep up with that swarm of inbound missile fire. It's all still very quiet. No one making an early move. Game formulating like a coiled spring for some late game goodness and some explosive play. Little batch of T1 bombers in from Wounded Elk, going after Willow's units on the ridge. Damage taken on both sides. Now, who is chip leader in terms of eco? Well, it's no contest. Wounded Elk putting out a whopping 243. Let's compare that to Willow. He's on 182, and considering he's essentially in control of the entirety of the far western portion of the map, this, what you might call, I suppose, sixth of the map, all under his control, and yet he is a considerable way off the pace here compared to Wounded Elk. Next highest rated, or next highest mass producer, I should say, is probably a Rectatron Just. He's on 185, and then of course Willow's we've just mentioned on about 180, and then we've got some 160s in there, a couple of 130s, and Sprom, who yeah, well, he's going to be of limited use, I think, in the mid-game until he can sort out his eco problems. Putting out just 59 mass per tick. I'm guessing he's probably... No, he's not. He's not power locked. That is a legit reading, so he is well off the pace. Upgrading that T2 mass extractor to T3, but he's paused it, as he has the others. Working on the core mass. He's got one core mass up to T3, the other one over here about 40% complete, on its way to T3. But focusing back in on the middle now, some gunships from Exited attacking some of the units under here, under this shield for a Rectatron, which is mostly T3 now, and he's got some mobile artillery pieces in there which are currently softening up the shield of Exited's forward base. Never fun absorbing those. But some wonderful sniper bots show up on the scene. Get a few more of those in. Always interesting. Sniper bots featured nicely in the latest Patreon cast, incidentally, guys, if you want to check that out after this. Merely $1 a month. All worthwhile, I assure you. And why not comment, like, and subscribe if you haven't already. All goes to help increase visibility and the free impressions the YouTube gods in their wisdom grant upon us mere mortals. Again, harassing that little group of units, but seemingly not close to penetrating these two parashields, thanks to some reasonable unit comp in there. Actually, no, I could have sworn we had some flak. Maybe the flak was recently destroyed. Air Force looking after units on the ground, more like. Wounded Elk catching a few of Class's fighters up over here. You'd love it if you could properly isolate it, this corner, keep Willow away from the rest of his comrades. Willow has anticipated his future needs and has already brought a Dragonfly up, so he's in place to pull his commander out. Question is, will there be clear skies when he decides to do that, or will he have to maneuver his way through a swarm of hostile air superiority fighters? Let's do a quick ASF count. 39 on the field for Wounded Elk, who's handling air control or air production for Team 2. Well, it looks like we've got 4 from Class after those latest engagements. We've got some out-of-date T1 interceptors from Exited, but this is a major advantage right now, potentially, for Team 1, who have also now shown up on the front line with a Fat Boy and have just barged their way in to this forward base of an Exited and are currently carving themselves some Cybran-shaped steaks, as unappealing and spiky as that sounds. And that base is well and truly done for. Wonderful win on the ground there from Team 1, really putting their mass advantage over time to good use. That advantage has fallen off slightly though, 761 to 738. Outbound TAC missile launchers from over here. Ooh! Doing some damage. Will-o'-the-Wisp, though, taking a TAC missile to the face on board that commander, dropping him down to 6,700 HP. Where did that come from? Hard to tell. Checking back in on the mechanical violence underway, though. Further to the south, that Fat Boy taking bomber fire from Class, who's got strap bombers buzzing overhead. Fat Boy down to around 6,400 hit points. Shield failing once again. Even the odd Corsair coming in now from Exited, and that is the end of the Fat Boy threat at least. And a Monkey Lord from Exited, so the first counter ground experimental from Team 2 arrives on the scene and starts hoovering up these Percivals, which up until now have helpfully rode in single file. The next batch, he's not quite so lucky, turns up in a fivesome with some more coming in to support. And if he wants to keep that Monkey Lord, he's going to have to get it out of there immediately. It's well into the red now, sub 10k HP. Percivals start to move up, but of course are not quite as quick as the Monkey Lord with its massive spidery gate. Called Spider, of course, though, but with 6 legs, it's nothing of the sort. A mere mockery of an arachnid right there. I guess 8 legs was a little too tricky to animate. Challenge going out to the Sanctuary boys. See if you can get 8 legs moving around, looking authentic and not clipping like crazy. Not that they'll be wanting to rip off any Forged Alliance units. They're a creative team, of course, full of their own ideas. Little Demolisher out front, taking pot shots at the ridge over there. Ooh, and an experimental completed for Class. That's our first crab of the day. Megalith operational in the main base. Do you know, I've never noticed. That's like it's a little gun right in the middle. I have never noticed that. I've been doing this for 10 years now, ladies and gentlemen. And there is a gun on the middle at the back. And it's never occurred to me. I mean, it doesn't seem to do anything, but it's there. Probably does something when you're up close and personal. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it was gonna do something and it was nerfed out of existence some time ago. That Monkey Lord looking a little better than it did a moment ago. It's up over 12,000 HP now into the yellow. But with backup from the Megalith, those Percys belonging to Erectotron probably want to think about withdrawal. Tactical missile upgrade for Gnarf. I mean, I know it needs an R in there to be Gnarf, but I refuse to say Naff over and over again, or Gnaf. Probably won't translate to my American audience. I don't know, did you ever use the word Naff over in the States? It's not really used over here now either. Very much a 80s, 90s thing. But I'm nothing if not culturally obsolete. Monkey Lord showing them who's boss now as he evicts those Percivals And their supplementary forces from the center, scooping up kills one at a time with that massive microwave laser. Doesn't want to get too close, though. You see what just a couple of shots do to it. Wow, down to 3,000 hit points. But the megalith should be able to sort this out now. And indeed it will. Monkey Lord heads back to base for regenerative therapy. Advanced nano repair on the way for Will-O-Wisp, who's got gun, double gun in fact on there already. So that's a deadly looking commander up there at the top left hand side of the screen. Dangerous though if he's planning to use it. Late game phase well underway now with experimentals and Tech 3 units kicking about all over the place. You definitely want to be using your commander sparingly if at all possible. Lots of support commanders on the field now for Erectron. They're busy constructing the next generation of fatties. Sounds like a strange thing to say. Wounded Elk working on a Soul Ripper. It's been a while since I've seen one of those turn up in the game. I don't know why. They were all the rage not so long ago, but seems to have fallen off the boil somewhat of late. And that megalith we saw just a moment ago from Class getting himself mobbed by a whole horde of whalers from Wounded Elk. In come the ASFs from both teams to try and clear this up. Are the ASFs from Class prioritizing the gunships? It doesn't necessarily seem so. It looks like just a royal mess in here at the moment. That megalith on about 44,000 hit points gets into range of this base over here now. A little bit of indecisiveness here. Am I building a crab or a Soul Ripper? What's going on? Says Wounded Elk to himself in a strange Smurf voice. Don't know why I'd expect an elk to talk like a Smurf, but that was my first impulse and I'm sticking with it. Look at this though, combined experimental pressure up the western approaches from both Superintendent and Will-O-Wisp. Again then, though, potentially vulnerable to air pressure. We do have some T3 lightning tanks coming in from Willow a little bit further back. But remember, we've just seen gunships over here attack a crab and successfully finish it off over here. It looks like it was hightailing it out of here when it got the fatal blow delivered. Always want to watch out for a fatal blow. That'll ruin your day. Superintendent now breaching into the main base of Sprom, who is on the run now with his commander and his Percivals. Ooh, what was that? That's a Billy Nuke. Thought for a moment we had an early ejection. Where's that come from? I saw a tactical missile upgrade underway earlier. Yes, it is indeed from Gnarf over here. Went straight for the Billy Nuke upgrades. Looks like he just missed the Ethota, but he's caught his attention now. The Ethota wheeling southeasterly, and if that fat boy isn't careful, he's going to get caught, and in fact he's just going to get caught. There's no two ways about it. This can only end one way, and it's with the destruction of the fat boy. What happened to the GC? The GC just got annihilated, I'm guessing thanks to all of the Percivals in here, but he didn't even manage to inflict much damage. That's what's surprising about this. Impressive defense there from Team 1. Those gunships might have had something to do with it. They're buzzing around over here. The Ethota has repositioned. That looks like that's taken some serious fire. That's in the red. The Percivals move in to engage. They want to keep this Ion Storm out of their base, and they're going to do it. Probably best to still just back up a few feet or so, or in terms of Sopgon scale, a few tens of feet. Monkey Lord doing the Fandango in the middle, trying to evade inbound fire, but he looks like he's in danger of getting sandwiched here in between Wounded Elk's forces and Erectatron, who's coming down from the north. 37 minutes into this game, and it's wonderful to see that we haven't had a single ejection yet. Game going all the way. Players not throwing their lives away needlessly. RAS upgrade complete, and T3 for Klaus down in his main base. Crab on the way for Exited. Where is his commander located now? There he is. Someone was telling me about a mod that helps highlight the commanders. I probably should get it, but people have been telling me about different mods for years, and I'm an old dog, and you know what they say about them: wash them regularly. I'm in a strange mood today. Didn't quite get the sleep I needed last night. Always does it to me. Very rude disruption to a perfectly peaceful reclaim operation underway from Wounded Elk. In came some gunships there from Exited. They're going to get blapped out of the sky for their trouble, but nonetheless, they have protected that mass field for the time being. Another Billy Nuke launched in towards the center. Monkey Lord still strutting his stuff over here. 151 kills to his name, 4 stars on board that experimental, looking for more easy kills just to try and get in range of some of these formations, whilst also not exposing himself to too much danger. What have we got here? Massive brick wall moving south through that central channel. The defenses we saw going up in the breach a while ago have subsequently been destroyed. So this is looking like a little bit of an open door into Exited's next forward base. He lost the other one up here, remember. He's expanded out slightly since then. He's actually got a T3 land headquarters in quite a precarious position over there. Gunships, though, trying to contain this brick push. Monkey Lord coming in from around behind them. And a Crab turning up in front of them. That will be the end of this little brick push, nicely defended by Exited. Where are the ASFs from Wounded Elk to combat this horde of gunships? There they are, in they come, a little bit slower than I would have expected, but it seemed like they were engaged with Klaus, who has managed to put out a decent number of air superiority fighters, though. Looked like a very one-sided affair, the air game, a while ago in favor of Team 1. Checking in on the mass totals, it's been a while since we've done it. Total mass accrued, Team 1 a whopping 1.32 million, Team 2 on 1.16. That is a significant overall long-term advantage. They're also up at least some 80 mass per tick. That could be a lot larger, although it's only procking at 1k now, so we don't know how much. That could almost be closer to 150 for all we know. Two fat boys sieging Willow's position up here. Where is the commander? There he is, very tooled up, but still looking vulnerable against this push. There's tons of Percivals in this mix. Two fat boys that are going to range the ever-living piss out of this top corner base, and I don't think there's much he can do about it. He's probably going to have to start contemplating evacuation. Question is Wounded Elk paying attention? He should be loitering nearby with his air superiority fighters, knowing that an evac is going to have to be on the cards if he's been paying attention to the wider scheme of things. Easier said than done, of course. Much easier for us to keep abreast of everything that's going on with full vision and no economy to support and upgrade. Willow bravely rolling out with his commander, though. Telly out. What's going on? Oh, and then a Cybran goes and does something stupid like saying herp derp telly snipe time. Well, Class looks like he is queuing up for a tele-snipe. And exited, starting laser as well. So both the Cyberins on Team 2 doing what Cyberins do best. Preparing to check out early, or indeed check someone else out against their will. Will-O-the-Wisp, though, taking some serious inbound fire. Down into the red briefly. He's got the advanced nano repair, of course, which is 250 hit points a second regen. But he needs to be very careful here. But he's put out a lot of damage. He's up to 30 kills now. The shield protecting him collapses. But he takes another bunch of Percivals out with those overcharges. And now just 2 remain on the front line. And interestingly, they've managed to kill off those fat boys thanks to this massive bank of T2 artillery back here. Will-O just proving he is a boss. And there is the tele-snipe attempt, or at least the tele-base takeout attempt, if that's even a thing. Going straight after the power plants of Wounded Elk. Attack pings desperately going down on the Guardian, because that must mean Team 2 have a nuke ready. But look at all of the strat bombers lying in wait to show you just why you shouldn't have done that. Careless Class was careless indeed. Got himself taken out by strat bombers. On the flip side, silver lining if you want to see it, look at the damage he inflicted on the power grid of Wounded Elk. That will hamper his air superiority fighter production for some time. We have Tech 3 artillery raining down on Team 2. Looks like it might be coming from a Rectatron, and indeed it is. It's a Duke. Lovely looking thing that they are. And we've got an inbound missile from Will-O in towards a Rectatron. Do we have nuke defense in place? We've also got... We do have nuke defense in place. Down it goes. Another nuke outbound from Gnarf, and that's going in towards the top corner. Will-O paying attention, strutting his stuff towards the Dragonfly. Control K's engineers that are in his way. How about that for a maneuver? He's on board. He needs to evac now, and I mean now, and indeed he does. How about that for a clutch evac? Oh! Now, can he make landfall? Superintendent says, wow, look at that. That is beautiful. That's like something out of a movie. Wounded Elk sees the opportunity. Does he? He's dispatched a handful of fighters, but he's not going to get there in time. Will-O is safely on the ground. They shoot the transport down as an illustration of what would have happened if Will-O wasn't quite so on the ball there. I'm jazzing over. Rarely has an evacuation ever made me quite so damp in the pants. That is extraordinary. Fantastic work from Will-O, but that's what you would expect from a 1700. But on the other side of things, he has lost that top corner base. Team 1 now advancing to control the ridge and get back that... is it just one mechs in here? It is just one mechs. So there's not a huge amount to be gained on resource side of things. There's another one on the ridge here and another one. So there's 3 mechs in total. Definitely worth having. But the important thing is they've shut down that threat that's been hanging over Sprom's western approach for about 25 minutes now, something like that, ever since we saw that long stroll straight up the channel here from Will-O. Will-O now finds himself confined to a more conventional area for him to dwell in. Is that an inbound Billy Nuke? Yes, it is. Going to impact on the shield, which probably won't take out many units. It'll take out 1 or 2. Ah, yeah. Fries a few of them on the front line there and depletes the shields, defending all of those units. In fact, are the shield gens down and out? No, not completely. So there's one there. That will blink back on in a little while once it's recharged. Goodness me, though. It's all to play for here. Would have liked to have seen Class not go for the tele-snipe. Full chair, though, is on. So, of course, somewhere poor Fairy has perished due to its terminal speech impediment. Sometimes I feel like that's happening to me as I age. Early onset dementia in full swing, I'm sure of it.
Detected.
Nuke again out from Team 2. Superintendent launching against Zbrom by the looks of things. Oh! And it's another telesnipe. We saw him going after it. And there it is. How thoroughly disappointing. And again, it goes badly for the sniper. Went in after a Rectatron, but he died over here. They did manage to take out one of the two Dukes. So there's a... Oh, and did he manage to take out strategic missile defense? Because there's a nuke inbound. That first nuke that came out from Superintendent while we were chatting there has been shot down by the looks of things. Or did it connect somewhere else? No, it got shot down. And as will that one. Narf's nuke eliminator over here with still more anti-nukes in the clip ready to defend the bases. 4 of them to be precise. That just about covering a Rectatron's base. If they'd have moved further west and gone after Zbrom, I think they probably could have taken him out, but Zbrom isn't a huge threat right now. And they would love to take out that other Duke and stop this next one from being rebuilt. That is a very large force of ASFs, though, that Willow has amassed. I wouldn't be surprised if he is now in a commanding air position overall. He moves in to strike the whalers, but gets distracted. Another tactical missile nuke going off over there. But that is massive air dominance now handed over to Team 2. And he is buzzing overhead over here with all of these strap bombers. They've discovered Narf's position. There is one shield, but it's only a T2 and it's badly depleted already. It's on about 40% of its charge. Gnarf making a play for the main base, needs to hang in some turns, try to avoid the inbound fire, but it's surely a waste of effort. There was no way he was getting out of that. Too many strap bombers coming from too many different directions. And finally, Team 2 managed to pull one back. It's Gnarf who goes out first for Team 1. And the leftover strats will go after support commanders and that Duke. Have they gotten both of them? Support commanders, a T3 reactor, and a couple, well, one of the artillery pieces. And the other one was under construction, but it's been badly, badly damaged. You can see where it's currently at. Very unfortunate passage of play there for Team 1. Team 2 will be glad of that after the way things have been going in the middle and having lost 2 of their players from those 2 failed tele-snipe attempts. But look at this, the base in the bottom right-hand corner, which has stood for the entirety of the game pretty much in Superintendent's hands. That is now been obliterated by a brick push from Wounded Elk, who's just charged down here into the valley and taken it out. There goes a Monkey Lord, formerly have exited, I'm presuming. Just wow, nearly at the 50-minute mark. Who is going to be next, and when? Could it be a Rectatron who draws some fire from strap bombers there from Superintendent? Ooh, 1,400 hit points. It doesn't get a lot closer than that. ASFs, though, for Wounded Elk, paying attention, preventing those strats from getting a second pass. Nicely done there. What did we have there? Some T3 bots on the ground from Team 1. Getting bombed into oblivion from Superintendent Chalmers. That's what he needs there. Chalmers on the end. It wouldn't fit, admittedly, in the nameplate. We'd just see Superintendent Cha, but we'd know where he was going with that. Megalith advances, arguably ill-advisedly, off his little plateau there. Finds himself absolutely mobbed by all of these bricks. He's going to take a few down with him, but he's not getting out of there alive. Too much inbound brick fire. Goodbye. Now, is that an open door? Depends on your definition. There's an awful lot of Oblivion point defense there, and we hear somewhere an experimental bomber out from Willow. Takes out a huge quantity of units over here. 41 kills to its name. Vulnerable Fat Boy. And of course, as we've just said, air superiority currently with Team 2 right now. Can they make this bomber work for them? There's Sprom. He draws fire. Mobile shield covering him, absorbs a lot of the damage. He's down to 13,000 hit points though. Oh, but Willow flies over a horde of SAMs over here. That's a lot. Teleporter complete for Wounded Elk. Looks like he's doing what Cybrans do. And what is that? It's just a nuke. We haven't lost anybody else yet. This game is just sheer bedlam. Wounded Elk now drawing strap bomber fire from Willow from the southeast. Cybran shields doing their best to keep up, protecting him for now. And those strats, because of all of the SAMs dotted around, they're not going to get a second shot at the commander, who is now spamming a laser upgrade in record time.
Strategic launch detected.
Nukes going out all over the place. This game that was so quiet for so long just exploded into action in the last 10-15 minutes or so. Bricks inbound. And Sprom drawing fire still from a strap bomb. There's not a huge commitment on that front. There's plenty of strap bombs down here that could deal with it. Sprom, I think, has had enough of life by the looks of things. Just marching unprotected away from his base in towards danger. Another experimental bomber. Willow, with his 429, is pumping these out. 429 mass per tick. Wounded Elk faring even better on 481. You can hear the silo warning sounds
Strategic launch detected.
going off as they unleash their ordnance. And that's going off towards the main base of Superintendent, maybe formerly of Excited. Experimentals moving into the main base of Willow. Strap bombers buzzing over the top of Sprom, and an experimental bomber to the face finishes him off completely. Wounded Elk going to inherit all of his stuff. The nuke connects in the old base of Exited and Class. Willow manages to defeat the inbound crab coming into his base, but there's a nuke inbound as well. Have they managed to take out the nuke defense? We will soon find out. There's also an inbound Fat Boy. Strap bombers, meanwhile, pouring into the top right-hand corner, going after Wounded Elk's commander. Wounded Elk with just 10,000 hit points. More strats inbound. They're getting shot down, but they're unloading their bombs, and down he goes at 54 minutes. Willow working on a teleporter of his own, perhaps thinking aggressively. Maybe he can get in there and cause some damage, but it is now a Rectatron versus Willow and Superintendent. Wounded Elk shouting to nuke them. You can win, he says. Teleporter 10% done, not even that, 8% done. Percival's marching in, doing battle up close and personal with point defense batteries and, of course, Willow's commander. But that fat boy still lurking on the outskirts, taking strap bomber fire though, and he's got no anti-air defense. Everything has been transferred over to Willow, which is curious. Superintendent still trying to complete a Colossus. I'm guessing he's asking for his stuff back so he can complete that experimental. Willow rooted to this spot though on this upgrade, and finally dispatching build capacity in to try and help him finish that off so he can get moving again. But that fat boy is about to die out. There it goes. Two more Percivals left, excuse me. New round of disposable Tech 1 bombers brought in just to inflict what damage they can. With the assistance, that teleport upgrade proceeding nicely up to about 80% now. That GC very close to completion. He desperately needs his stuff back so he can finish that off. I guess they handed everything over to assist Willow's teleport upgrades. He's going to go on a rampage. He's got double gun. Doesn't have the nano repair anymore though. He's traded it for that teleport ability. And he is off. Now where is he going? Is he going after a Rectatron? I can't see where the comm is. There it is. There is the gate aperture. Kills off a few engineers. There's a huge bank of point defense over here though. Support commanders brought out to engage the invader. Willow not with a huge amount of HP, and would you look at that? I mean, it's essentially suicide at this point. He was never going to breach in. I guess they felt like they had to try it. Superintendent, the last, but does he even stand a chance against the Rectatron? Look at all of the Percivals pushing southwesterly. He has completed his Colossus. But the air advantage that Team 2 had has long gone. And surely this is now a Rectatron's to lose. It's got to be GG, I think. Superintendent is just sticking around to see how much damage he can inflict with this Colossus. He's about to get mobbed by Tech 1 bombers, though. And there's nothing he can do about it. He's got no anti-air to support that Colossus. And he is just now going to get blitzed by a million T1 bombers. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. And there's no real hope of him getting anywhere sensitive. Meanwhile, Percival's streaming in the front door of what was Willow's old base is now being torn asunder by a combination of Percivals and bricks. Two most devastating T3 units on the field, or in the game for that matter. Special honourable mention, of course, to the Seraphim siege tank, mainly because I like the noise it makes when it opens up on things. Is it dead? Where did it go? I'm not seeing it now. And the bombers all being redirected on towards the main base. I think the Colossus is already well out of it. It was deep in the yellow when we saw it, and there it is. Corpse. Smoted. Smote his ruin in the valley. He did not pass. And now it's just a question of getting yourself shot down on a transport. I'm guessing that's what happened there. GG's going out all round. Wonderful play from Team 1. Interesting stuff. So, story of the game. The corners went to Team 2. The middle early doors went to Team 1. Team 2 pushed them out of the middle with some good early base pressure, but Team 1 macro hard it and eventually managed to force Willow out of the top left-hand corner with that wonderful nuke. Willow stayed alive with an amazing evacuation, one of the best I've ever seen. Hilarious stuff, but all in all, it all proved too much. Team 2 threw away a couple of their players unnecessarily on those tele-snipes, did not get the work done that they needed to. Yes, crippled some of the power production for Wounded Elk, slowing down his air production, which did in turn probably help contribute to the air advantage that Team 1 ended up with. And of course, the other sacrifice down here took out the Dukes, the power, but ultimately was unnecessary, and they just didn't have the manpower to get it done on the ground anywhere else. They never really looked like breaching through. Their only opportunity was to win with strap bombers, and they made a damn good effort at that. Took it down to one player, but in the end, Erectatron closed it out for Team 1. Congratulations for Team 1. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Don't forget, if you've seen everything and you want more, there are some 44, I think, casts now up on the Patreon page. How long that remains in its current format, I don't know. Long story short, mainly because it's boring to tell, Vimeo have come at me. They're the hosting service that I use to put videos up on Patreon. They have basically said, you're using too much bandwidth, mainly because I put high-quality videos up. And they want to move me from paying, I think it's $16 a month or something, to paying $3,000 a year. So I won't be doing that. So if they do take it down, the videos I put up already, I will re-upload them with links. It won't be integrated into Patreon, but the links will be on Patreon. And you'll be able to view all the stuff there. So if that happens, I will be re-uploading as it goes. But it's all in limbo at the moment. But anyway, do check that out, guys. As I say, some 44 odd casts there. Lots of content for you to check out, and it helps me out an enormous amount. Keep the replays coming in as well, guys. If you fancy yourself being featured on Guilecast, play some faff, pick up your commander and throw him at your enemy. That's always a great way to get yourself noticed. And send me the replay. And who knows, you might be featured. Anyway, until next time, guys, stay well and stay safe. This is Guile, signing out.